The internet, and I don't know if it's my connection or your connection, but it seems a little scratchy.
It's 100% my connection. I'm going to say it's fine.
Okay, no, it is fine. Like, but it's not. I can tell it's not the microphone causing it. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I think it's just the
I
connection.
could turn my camera off.
I like seeing your face.
Yeah,
though.
no,
It makes
it's
it
kind
easier
of
for me
shit.
to react.
It's also weird because I can
Yeah.
never tell, like, if you have your camera off, you can't tell if I'm about to talk or if, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I much prefer it with
And I am
the
very
camera.
good looking, so it's good. It's good to see me.
Yeah, I know. I gotta have the eye candy. Hello, and welcome back to the Bookcast Club, a podcast for people who love books. My name is Chris, and I am coming to you from Indianapolis, Indiana, and Sarah is coming to you from the Netherlands. And in today's episode, which is Season 1, Episode 4, for those of you keeping track in our new format, we are very pleased to be talking about Hannah Kent, one of our favorite Australians. But before we do that, how have you been, Sarah?
Hello. I'm very well. I did want to say, I mean, it's such a small drama, but I thought I would entertain you. That I had like such a drama this week with my Kobo. It's been an exciting week here. And you don't know what a Kobo is, you just told me. Off air.
Yeah, I know. I've been re-educated on what a Kobo is, and this time I'll try and commit it to memory, though. I don't think
I know,
I've ever
I think
even
we've had
seen
this
one.
conversation like 3 or 4 times, but that's fine. We'll say it again. It's good. We're absolutely not one of those podcasts who, you know, some podcasts you have to have been listening from like episode 1 because they have all these like back references. It's like, we're not that. We've forgotten every conversation we've ever had. So every conversation we have is
yeah.
like new.
I'm basically Drew Barrymore's character from 50 First Dates.
Yeah. What am I talking about? Kobo. So yeah, Kobo.
The Kobo.
Kobo is like the other. In my opinion, it's like one of the bigger e-readers that isn't Kindle. There's also like one called Tolino, I think, which is like a German one that's really big. But Kobo is the company, or I think Rakuten is the name of the company. They are the people that made like Libby and like Overdrive and stuff.
Okay.
So if you have a Kobo and you get books out from your library, like ebooks out from your library, this is so specific, but the Overdrive and like Libby environment is like native to Kobo, so it works like super well. I don't work for them. I just think they're really cool. So that's the e-reader that I have. I had a Kindle for maybe the first, I don't know, 5 years or so of having e-readers, and now I have a Kobo, and I really, really like it.
You're really selling me here because I have a Kindle, but I never use it because I don't typically use e-readers. I typically, read physical books. But the thing I would use an e-reader for is library books because it is convenient to not have to like drive to the library. I'm not really located very close to a library branch anymore. So like I would use the e-reader for that.
The main reason that I use it is because when I'm in the Netherlands, I can use my Australian library still, so I can get ebooks out. So it's super helpful. Like right now I'm reading the Stella long list, or the Stella short list rather, for an episode, and like that would, I mean, obviously I could buy all the books, but I mean I'm not going to do that, please, but so I can get the ebooks out. So it's amazing, and I find I quite like physical books, but I really like ebooks actually. It's really nice to just lie in bed with your book and not have to move like at all.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I always find annoying about physical books. It's having to like get up and turn the page. I mean, it's difficult. But anyway, I had the software in an e-reader cannot be that sophisticated, but it got like massively corrupt, and I had to charge it for like 3 days and then like reset it, and then I lost all my ebooks, and then I had to like restore it, and it's been a nightmare, mate. I spent like a day just trying to fix my Kobo.
You're no longer selling me on the Kobo.
Well,
you had me convinced in the first half, and now the sales pitch has been lost.
I'm in the habit, which I don't know if this is true, but I'm in the habit of letting it and like all of my devices and stuff go really flat, like really flat.
Same.
I especially do this with my iPad a lot, where then I have to charge it for like quite a long time, and I instinct tells me that's not a very good thing to do to your device, because I'm pretty sure they're designed to not be run entirely flat. This might be completely false. I don't know, but I do think that that's not the ideal thing to be doing. So I've done that. I've made it like dead several times. So I feel that it may be my fault. But anyway, it was quite stressful because I needed a book that I have to read for an episode. So, but it's all fixed now. But yeah, otherwise I think Kobos are great. I really, really like them. And the Kobo
Huh.
online store is good. I really like it. And I don't use Amazon, so yeah, Kindle. I wouldn't get a Kindle. So yeah, Kobo's good.
I guess the only e-readers I ever see typically around are Nooks, which is Barnes and Noble's e-reader, and then Kindles. Those are like the two that people tend to have that I know.
Yeah.
Or they're using some other generalized tablet that isn't necessarily specifically designed for being an e-reader.
Nooks are not big here. Well, we don't have Barnes and Noble here, so that's not going to be big. But I think Kobo also has quite a lot of audiobooks. I think Jen uses them for audiobooks because they also have a subscription service.
Oh, okay.
A little bit like Amazon's. It's not as like return friendly and stuff as Audible, but it is pretty good. So yeah, it's a pretty good. It's like the best alternative to Audible and to Amazon, I think, in my personal opinion and experience.
Well, you're reading the Stella Longlist on the Kobo, which is an Australian prize celebrating Australian women. And one of the Australian women we would like to celebrate is Hannah Kent. Sarah, do you want to tell us a little bit about Miss Hannah Kent?
Thank you. You're trying to get me back on track. Yes, Well done. Whenever Chris makes a good segue, he gets the smuggest expression on his face you can't even imagine. It's like, everyone shut up. I've got a segue. That was beautiful. Yeah, I love Hannah Kent. So she's an Australian writer. She is from Adelaide Hills, I believe, which is in South Australia. And she has written 3 books. So she first wrote Burial Rites, which I think made the biggest splash, I would say. Would you say that's fair? Mm-hmm. That was pretty, especially on like the book internet, that Burial Rites was truly everywhere. People loved it. So that was in 2013. And then 2016, she came out with The Good People, which was also very well acclaimed, I would say. And then 2021 was her most recent one, which was Devotion, which, in my opinion, is her best. But that hasn't made anywhere near as much of a splash, I would say, unfortunately. And even in the US, it's not even published, right?
No, it's not even published, and I can't get my paws on it without ordering it from somewhere outside of the United States, which initially I was hesitant to do because I was on a big don't buy any books thing, but I recently bought a book, so I might as well buy this. But yeah, off topic, I can't get my hands on it in the United States, unfortunately. So any US publishers that might be listening to the Bookcast Club, you should get the rights to the newest Hannah Kent.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about all 3, are we not? Briefly.
Yes.
Cool. Let's do it. Let's talk about these books.
Yes.
You ready?
It's interesting. So I'm only going to be able to talk about 2 of them because I can't get my hands on Devotion. But I do think it's interesting that rereading these books, because I've read both of them when they came out, and rereading them, it's actually interesting how similar The Good People and Burial Rites is.
I was also struck rereading them by there's definitely some themes that are really similar, even though the setting of these books are like radically different from each other. But yeah, let's go through them systematically, shall we? Burial Rites is set in Iceland in 1829, and it's the story of Agnes Magnusdóttir, who was the last person, I believe, to receive the death penalty in Iceland. She certainly was the last woman, and I think she was the last person. So it's based on a true story, and the book starts with Agnes having been convicted of murder, and they're trying to work out what to do with her, because these sort of criminals are not very common in Iceland now, but especially not in the 1820s. And I believe, I did read online today that Hannah Kent actually she did an internship in Iceland, so she lived in Iceland for a little while. So that was kind of her inspiration for writing this book, which is set, I think it's in the Northwestern Fjords, I think. It's not in... no, it's not. It's near Reykjavik, but it's in a farm, like it's very rural. What basically happens in the story is that they have this woman who has been convicted of this pretty gruesome murder, and there's no jail and there's nowhere to keep them because there's a couple of other people who are also convicted, and so she goes to live on a farm with a family, and it is the story of her and this family, because she literally just lives in their house, like they don't have a cell block or anything like that, and it's the story of how this family feels about it and what it does to the family, and also how they get to know this woman as a person. And then she is going through the process of getting what they call Christian burial rites, which is like she's talking to a priest, and she's learning to... Oh, she's like, I guess, considering about repenting, so that when they execute her, they don't feel too bad because she'll go to heaven. I think I've got to turn my internet off. Sorry, my video off, I'm afraid. Oh no, hang on. I've turned your video off. That was really dumb. Hang on.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so we had a little internet problem, but I really enjoyed this book. I was struck the second time reading it by many similarities between this book and the novel Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood, which is a book that I really love. But this one feels much more intimate and maybe compassionate than Margaret Atwood's novel. And I love watching the way the relationship between the family, which has guardianship of Agnes, watching as the relationship, which at the beginning is understandably very frigid. They don't want Agnes there. They're only there because whatever the law is, basically saying that they have to host her prior to her execution. So the relationship is very frigid, understandably. They're very suspicious of her. But watching that relationship gradually change over the course of the novel and seeing how their opinions of Agnes change over the course of the novel as you learn more and more about the case that is being brought on her. It's very powerful. It's a very, very good story.
Yeah, I agree. It's such a subtle book, actually, I think. One of the things that I remember... So I reread this book for the episode, and I've read it before years ago, and I absolutely adored it then. I adored it again now. One of the things that I like so much about this book, and what I admire so much about her writing in general, actually, is the sense of place. Like, this is a book that I struggle to think of a book, actually, that over this particular one that has a stronger sense of place, and the way that she describes Iceland itself, which I've now been to since I've read it for the first time. It's such a bleak, desolate, unique landscape. It's really eerie, and she describes it amazingly well. And she describes this feeling. I mean, I haven't been to Iceland in winter. I've only been in late spring, and the way that she describes the wind and the weather and just how wild it is, really, at the time it really affected me, but now that I've been to Iceland, it's just incredible. The way that she describes it is just incredible. The area that Agnes goes to, this valley, is so cold and so desolate. I really loved being back in that sort of setting again. And the imagery is so vivid, especially she's describing, I found the interior of the huts where they live, all these sort of cabiny things where they live, the darkness, the grunginess. It's so visceral, I'm going to say. And I completely agree. I was really struck this time by how much this is really about the mother, actually, of the family. And at the time, when I first read it, I remember attending a lot more to the daughters because they're kind of the opening characters. But it's really about the mother, I think, whose name I actually have just forgotten. Yeah, but her and Agnes's relationship, and them as sort of two women finding each other and having this understanding, is quite beautiful, actually, in the way that they have this sort of tentative understanding and friendship that kind of builds up, and how they're, at the end of the day, women who both of them are in difficult circumstances. Both of them are really just trying to get through it, and they really find each other in that, in a way that I think is really subtle.
Yeah, and I love also the daughters. There's two daughters, and the one daughter starts off very frigid towards Agnes, and the other daughter is more curious and sympathetic and kind of follows Agnes around on her coattails a little bit. And it's because she actually, I believe, saw Agnes at a market prior to her leaving the area. And because she had seen her at this market and was friendly towards her, she can't believe that this woman was actually truly murderous. She thinks that there has to be some sort of innocence about her. And anyway, all that to say that, these two young girls in the family have very different perspectives on Agnes at the beginning. And you watch how their friendship, or I shouldn't say friendship, but, their relationship changes over the course of the novel. And it's just really, really good. And yeah, the descriptions of the place, it's so cold, it's so untamed and wild. I always remember feeling like it was just these wide open, howling kind of wind-like spaces. So descriptive that I was reading the book in some pretty hot days that we were having here in spring in Indiana, but the book was so atmospheric that you would kind of forget that it was actually really nice weather outside.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I was just looking at some of the reviews on Goodreads, and someone said that the houses are really claustrophobic, even though it's so isolated. It's isolated and scattered, but also they have these claustrophobic houses, which I think is a great description.
I also love the viewpoint switching that happens in the book. So you get viewpoints from a lot of different characters. But it's very rooted in Agnes's character viewpoint because hers is the only one that has like a first person perspective. So in some ways, whenever you kind of get to Agnes's perspective, there was almost this sense of relief I would have when I would get to one of her sections, because it felt like somebody kind of breaking the fourth wall and talking to the reader in a weird way, and laying out their story, and those sections kind of punctuating everyone else's perspective is really good. I love the way that it builds that story that way.
Yeah, I think the structure is really good, and there's quite a lot of back and forth between present day, and there's like a few sort of threads from the past as well. And I think that it's handled really, really well. And I mean, not to sound condescending, but especially for a debut, I think this is really, really impressive.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that, well, in the discussions we've had of this book, we've made it sound very like character focused and slow, which in some ways it is, but in other ways this is a pretty like tightly plotted, I mean, thrilling, violent book. I mean, it goes into some pretty dark places, and she maintains a lot of narrative tension really effortlessly throughout the novel.
Yeah, you're right, she does, because the whole thing, you're sort of wondering, she is convicted, and they're sort of marching towards that day that she's going to be executed, and they, as the family sort of start to think, especially the mother, start to think differently of her, and your perception starts to change, and then you start to sort of completely be on her side and want her to be freed, I guess. And then it just becomes this super tense thing. It's yeah, really, very much. It's like not a thriller, but it certainly has that sort of tight tension.
I think it's definitely more tightly plotted than The Good People.
Yes.
Which I also really like.
Is that a segue?
No, it could be, but I wasn't trying to. I was just saying. I was just thinking about both of the books, I guess, at once.
Yeah,
but I don't have much else to say about Burial Rites. If you have more, though, I'd love to hear.
No, I don't. I'd love to move on to The Good People.
The Good People, which I reread for this, and I really liked it a lot more on the reread than I did on the initial reading. I actually didn't love this one as much the first time I read it.
Yep, I'm nodding vigorously. That was completely me as well. I quite liked it the first time I read it, and then I reread it for this episode, and I was like, oh, I love this. This is great.
Yeah, and there were actually some things that initially I didn't like about it the first time I read it, which I liked about it the second time I read it. So I guess that just shows, like, you know, opinions change, and I feel like every time you read a book at a different point in time, you're kind of reading a different book. But I should say what The Good People is about. The Good People is about a woman named Nora who, at the beginning of the novel, her daughter has recently died, and her grown adult daughter has recently died, leaving behind Nora's grandson, Michael, who is, at this point in time, severely handicapped. You're not really sure as the reader what exactly is wrong with him, but after about 2-3 years of age, he started not developing normally, and missing milestones, and being paralytic, and losing the ability in some of his limbs. And at the very beginning of the novel, then, Nora's husband, who had been much kindlier and more fatherly to his grandson, has just died suddenly while out working in the fields. And now people are starting to blame Michael, this young child, for the ills going on in this community in Ireland, and I believe the 1860s or something like that. So the people start to blame Michael for the ills falling on this community, and in particular they start to say that he's a changeling that has been left behind by the fairies or the good people. Intermixed with this is a woman named Nance, who kind of lives on the outskirts of town, and is kind of the local wise woman, for lack of a better word. She gives out herbal healings and stuff like that, and is said to be able to commune with the good people. And as the course of the novel goes on, Nora becomes more and more desperate to rid herself of this changeling that she believes has taken over her grandson.
Yeah, I agree. I really agree with what you were saying. So the first time I read this, I don't know what, I didn't quite... I don't know, I think I found it a little bit boring. And the second time, I really, really enjoyed reading about the dynamics. For me, this is really a book about dynamics and how people think of each other and like sort of treat each other and are kind or unkind to each other. And I think this is a sort of actually a theme that Hannah Kent sort of looks at in a lot of different ways, but she really looks at, especially in this book, I think, morally grey characters and people who do horrendous things in a way that is somehow really sympathetic. So Nora herself, the way that she actually deals with this grandchild Michael is honestly horrendous. There are some really awful scenes in here. But she builds it up in this way that is so delicate that you really feel for Nora, even though she is doing things that are awful. Sorry, you go.
Well, I was just going to say, and she's doing these things that are awful, and I think the reason she comes across as sympathetic is that she is a true believer.
Yeah.
She really does believe that her grandson has been taken by the good people.
Yeah.
She doesn't think of this as her grandchild anymore. And it's, once you no longer think that, somebody is human, it's suddenly acceptable to do any kind of abuse, and that's a lot of what this book looks at as well, is like, you kind of know where the book is going about halfway through, which I won't spoil, but yeah.
Yeah, I read, I wrote in my notes when I read this, when I reread the book, that Nora is a woman deep in grief. And you can see this driving her, this desperation to believe, this need to believe, is so deep, especially because of the way that she ends up with Michael in the first place. You can just understand her actions. And especially towards the sort of end of the book, I really admired actually the way that she shows the actions of these women very sympathetically. And she sort of explains what they're doing without excusing them. And it's not quite... They're doing things that are really ignorant. They do things that really hurt other people. And she shows you how it's all sort of done with like the purest of intentions. But she's not excusing them. Like, they still are. She sort of hits this, in my opinion, like really perfect balance in this book between these two kind of worlds of like treating people, having like children who are treated the way that they absolutely deserve to be treated, and also having sympathy for people that genuinely don't know any better.
Yeah. And I loved also reading this book about Nance, who's this older woman, lives on her own, and Nance contributes in many ways, obviously, to the abuses that happen to Michael, because she kind of feeds into the mystical fanaticism surrounding, what they think has happened here. But at the same time, Nance is so sympathetic because of the fact that she's this lone woman on the edge of society. She kind of has to stake some kind of claim for herself in order to survive. She has to somehow make herself useful to this community in order to, feed herself. And that does lead her to lie and delude and really mess with people. But at the same time, she always seems to be doing it from a good place. And you really feel for her when she kind of rubs against the religious leaders in the community.
Yep, you do. Absolutely. And there's things she does in there that are really questionable. But you still... Oh, yeah. I mean, I was never angry with her or anything.
No, yeah. I also liked how much of the story... So, what we described, actually, there's a lot more that happens in the story in the peripheral with all the townspeople. And there's lots of politics and, deep ties between all of these people. Everybody in this village is, like, related through marriages and interconnected in some way. And you learn so much about their dramas because... people come to Nance for treatment and they gossip with her about what's going on in town, and piecing together all the different pieces of information about people through this gossip lens, I guess, with Nance. It's a really effective storytelling strategy that gives a lot of insight into Nance's character and how she reacts to these people and helps them. And what she learns from them about the community. I really liked those sections.
Yeah, it was so subtle. Really, really liked it.
I didn't mention this, but like Burial Rites, this has amazing sense of place and beautiful nature writing. I think that both of the books, in my opinion, feel kind of equally atmospheric. So if you're wanting especially some good autumnal reads, really, you can do no better. This is where we pop a little ad break in to tell you about all the different ways you can support the podcast, most of which are totally free. We'll start with Patreon, as this is where we've been hiding for the past few months. Tiers start at £2 a month, with our bonus episode tier costing just £5. Now that we're seasonal and generally recording ahead of time, Patreon is where you'll find all our timely conversations on recent and current reads, DNFs, book prizes, and lots more. You can try our bonus tier for free today. We highly encourage a binge listen to our back catalog of bonus episodes, and we'll take no offense if you choose to cancel afterwards. If you love receiving book mail and personalized recommendations, our top tier is for you. We get you to fill in a survey, and then we tailor our book recommendations to your preferences. Find all the details in our show notes. Now for the free ways to support us that make a huge difference. A really effective and easy way of showing your support is by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. There is a link in the show notes that will take you straight to the Apple Podcast page where you can write a review. If you listen on Spotify, you can also very easily give us a star rating. You can also share our posts on social media. We're at Bookcast Club on Instagram and TikTok. You can sign up to our newsletter on Substack, where we share even more book recommendations, our pick of the new releases, and all the latest podcast news. But the best way for us to find new listeners is by you telling your book-loving friends and family about us. However you choose to support, we as always want to say a huge thank you. We appreciate each and every one of our listeners.
Right, last one, my friend.
Yeah, I'll be no help here.
No, you won't be any help here, but that's okay. No more than usual. No more or less than usual. So the last one is, unfortunately, by far my favourite, which is Devotion. Devotion, I've talked about Devotion on the podcast before, and I got in trouble because I said it was set in Prussia, of all places. And then I got a few, people were like, of all places? But, I'm going to stand by my earlier narrative. It's set in Prussia, of all places. 1836, and it is about a family of old Lutherans. So they are, in the context of, sort of Prussian society, they are they live in this sort of, isolated community of all these people who are these sort of adhere to this sort of very traditional faith, which is old Lutheran, and they are not really in contact with a lot of the people outside of this community. They're very isolated, and it's the main character is called Hannah, and she's a 16-year-old, and her parents are sort of big in this community. And then what happens is that another family move in from elsewhere, as you do. And so there's Taya and Hannah now, and they're both sort of 16 years old or so. And then they end up falling in love with each other. And it is about these families moving to Australia, actually. So Hannah and Taya have this sort of very deep love for each other that is very much not allowed. And they're trying to sort of maintain this whilst sort of navigating this very traditional community, whilst they navigate this kind of trip to Australia. So they start off in Prussia, and then they end up in the Adelaide Hills, which is where Hannah Kent is actually from. And then I believe that there are elements of this story that are kind of real, I think. I mean, it is true that old Lutheran families did migrate to Australia. I don't think that the characters are actually based on real people, but I know that there are elements of the story that are based on real events. This one is quite a different book. There are a lot of the similar themes that we've talked about. You certainly have a lot of clashing of people with different understandings, with different education levels, different educational backgrounds, who are misunderstanding each other. Taya's mother is kind of like a healer who is not really welcomed that much in the community, and people kind of shun her a little bit. So she's kind of a little bit like a Nance character in The Good People. And then Taya's family are quite different. They sort of raise Taya in a bit of a different way to the way that the other parents do in this community. So there's this sort of battle that we also sort of saw in The Good People of sort of morals and religious belief and all that kind of thing. And then you have this very, very beautiful adoration between Hannah and Taya. There's quite a few elements of this book that are quite different to The Good People and to Burial Rites. The biggest difference for sure is that there is quite a lot of magical realism in Devotion. There is a little bit of magical realism in The Good People, but this one she really pushes it out a lot further, to the point that I think some people might not actually like this book because it's quite a diversion. I thought it was amazing, and so she sort of pushes it into this sort of unreal real world, and she's really examining the dynamics of Hannah and Taya, but she does it in a way that is fairly experimental. And I thought it was so beautiful. I absolutely adored it. I really liked it the first time around. Again, like with every other book, I liked it even more the second time around. And I really wish it had been more popular. I don't know why It hasn't been published in the US. I don't know why it hasn't been picked up. I haven't even really seen it around in like Australia, to be honest. Like, it just hasn't made the same impact that her first two have. Which honestly I think is a huge shame, because I think it tells a very unique story, and it's just like her other, like, it's so delicate and it's so beautiful, and I really wish it was bigger.
Yeah, I am just now Googling to make sure that we haven't gotten an American release at any point yet, because that does sound really freaking good. And no, I don't believe that we have.
Yeah, I'm just looking down the reviews, and people either say, this book is extraordinary, like 5 stars, I loved it, or they say, halfway through it goes in a direction I didn't like. And yeah, like, it made a decision that I found ridiculous. So yeah, if you don't like magical realism, you're honestly not going to like it. It's a book that's really examining love and different forms of love, and what love can transcend. And I just thought it was amazing. She's sort of looking at the dynamics between humans, just like she does in Burial Rites and The Good People, but in a way that sort of pushes it out even further, you know, and kind of pushes the boundaries of what that can actually be. Yeah, I thought it was super.
Well, what a shame. I am probably going to just end up ordering this from some sort of international website.
Yeah,
because
I got it, right?
I want to read this really bad. Yeah. Who would you say is like a similar author to Hannah Kent, if you were to recommend her to somebody? For fans of who? I was also not sure if I had a good answer to this, but I was trying to think of who she might kind of be in the same vein as.
That's a really good question, because she writes, if you are listening to us describe her books now, you're going to think that they're quite historical, which is true, but they're not historical fiction-y in the way that you might think of an historical fiction novel.
Yeah.
The sense
In
of
some
place
ways,
honestly makes me think of someone like it's like Donna Tartt or someone like that, to be honest, because the sense of place is so strong. That's what I'm sort of trying to think of.
But Donna Tartt feels so different in many other ways from Hannah Kent. You know what I mean? I was thinking a little bit of Sarah Moss.
Yeah, that's not a bad.
And some of the books by Sarah Moss that I've read, which Sarah Moss herself has a book about Iceland, which I haven't read yet. But her books also have a really great sense of place. I guess Sarah Moss was kind of the only one that was really screaming to mind, but it was just a thought I was having, and I was trying to think of who I would say she might be good for fans of another author.
Yeah, I'm actually looking on Storygraph now to try and prompt my thoughts.
Well, either way, even if she might just stand alone, but highly, highly recommend reading her.
Yeah, absolutely. Do it. If you haven't done it already, do it. Yeah, that's a really difficult question. I wish you'd asked me that earlier, mate. So I could have thought about it, but that's super.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. It was just a thought I was having.
Yeah, like it's a really good question, because there's so many elements of her book. Like there's the storytelling, this like sort of really immersive setting, which is sort of one thing, but then this kind of like delicate character dynamics is something like quite different. It's almost more like Toni Morrison or something like that. Like it's really, I don't know. That's hard. I have to think about it. Well, I'll try and think about it and put it in the show notes, maybe, if I can come up with a good answer. But
yeah, like I said, Burial Rites, in many ways, that novel reminds me a lot of Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. Different in tone, I would say, but I would say if you got done reading Alias Grace and wanted something that was similar, Burial Rites would definitely scratch that itch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to compare her to Margaret Atwood. I want to be more flattering than that. I know she's a whatever. I don't like Margaret Atwood that much. Blah, blah, blah. Sorry.
I like Margaret Atwood, so it's a compliment for me. All right, well, that was our episode on Hannah Kent. If you want to contact us with any questions, ideas, feedback, recommendations, you can always email us at thebookcastclub@outlook.com, or we are on Twitter and Instagram @bookcastclub. You can sign up to our newsletter if you want more reviews, new releases, podcast recommendations, or updates on the podcast. And you can always check out our Patreon, where you can have a 7-day free trial. Binge the episodes and leave if you want to, or stick around and get monthly bonus content. We will see you guys in the next episode. Bye!
Goodbye!